Welcome to day 16 of the school year. Okay, let's get down our beginning fraction. We have a total of 180 school days. That is why that's our denominator, because we're looking at school days. And we are on day 16. Let's find our factors of our numerator of 16. Two factors we always know are 1 and the number itself. Using the commutative property of multiplication, I can also write it as 16 times 1. Now I'm going to go through my divisibility rules in an orderly fashion so I don't miss any possible factors. After 1, we try 2. The rule for 2 is that ends in an even number. It does end in an even number, so 2 is a factor. 2 times 8, 8 times 2. We try 3. The rule for 3 is that we add the digits together. 1 plus 6 equals 7. 7 is not a multiple of 3, so 3 is not a factor. We try 4. 4 times 4 is 16. When these two factors are the same, that means that 16 is a perfect square, because both its length and width are the same when we make it. So let's go ahead. There's no numbers between 4 and 4, so let's write down all our factors. We have 1, 2, we always write from least to greatest, 4, 8, 16. I have 5 factors, so that's more than 2 factors, so that is composite. And now we need to figure out what our greatest common factor is. So we're going to start with our greatest factor here and see if it's common to both. So we're going to make groups of 16. And it doesn't matter what your groups look like as long as you have 16 in each group and you do not have any shaded with unshaded. So I'm going to use that idea that 16 is a perfect square and make some perfect squares here. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16. And I have 4 left over. That means that 16 is not our greatest common factor. So now we need to try 8. Just remember to keep your shaded into separate groups. So make sure you have your 8 in those separate groups. Okay. Doesn't matter what your groups look like as long as they have 8 in each group. The more you understand about numbers, the more you can use logic to help you make your groups and not have to count each one. But counting does always work. It just takes a little longer. And I'd rather you take a long time to get to a right answer than quickly get to a wrong answer. I still have 4 left over, so that means 8 is not our greatest common factor. Let's try 4. 4 is also a perfect square, so I'm going to use that knowledge to help me with making groups of 4. And it's called a perfect square because it actually makes perfect squares. Okay, now there is no remainder. That one worked, so that means 4 was our greatest common factor. Okay, let's count up our total amounts of groups of 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each row. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. 45 total groups. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those groups shaded in. Now that I've done the division with my model, I'm going to do it with my algorithm. And I divide both of them by 4, my greatest common factor. Because I put the shaded area into 4, I put the whole thing into 4. I'm always dividing by the same number. Okay, so 180 divided by 4. And 16 divided by 4. See, I know 4 quarters makes $1, so 4 times 25 gives me 100. Numbers the same, zeros a game, more on top, no need to stop. See, and then let's try 10 times 4 is 40. Shifts everything over a place. Numbers the same, zeros a game, more on top, no need to stop. And then 10 times 4 is 40. Numbers the same, zeros a game. Add up our partial quotients. 5 plus 0 plus 0. 2, 3, 4. Now over here, let's see, 4 times 2 is 8. 16 take away 8 is 8. 4 times 2 is 8. Numbers the same, zeros a game. And then add up my partial quotients. 2 plus 2 is 4. So even though if you didn't know 4 times 4 was 16, you can still get there with multiplying by 2. Now we need to check our answers with our inverse operation. Divisor times quotient plus remainder. Divisor times quotient plus remainder. Since on both of these our remainders are 0 and the identity property of addition says it's going to stay the same, I don't actually need to add them. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2 is 18. 4 times 4 is 16. 180 matches my dividend here. 16 matches my dividend here. So it checks. And that means my numerator is definitely 4 and my denominator is definitely 45. Now it's time to fill in our data collection page. Trimester 1, week 4. Today is 8/29/19. Okay, and our fraction for today is 4/45. Okay, so let's get out our number line. We did groups of 4. So we have 1 2/45, and then here would be 3 pieces, so 3/45. And then here is 4/45. Now 3/45 is equivalent to 1/15, so that's why we didn't have it written down before, because it was in our simplest form, our equivalent fraction in lowest terms. It is also equivalent to 6/90 and 12/180. But today's has we have equivalent fraction in our 2's, and here are 16 out of 180. There's none below it, only equivalent fractions above it. Okay, let's go ahead and put your number line away, erase your worksheet, and thank you for joining me.